For those who know a little bit more about my story, is that I ended up interning at Intel my junior year, and I mentioned that I stayed at a friend's house because he was interning at Facebook. This friend is Naka, so I lived with him for 3 months over in San Mateo, right? And we would take the train together to campus. He would stop by, was it Menlo Park or Mountain View or Palo Alto?
I think it was Palo Alto, and then I'll get a shuttle from there.
Yeah, Palo Alto, he'd get the shuttle, then I go to Santa Clara, which is where Intel was. And so, in this whole process of finding internships, a lot of students ask, especially when they're first coming from maybe Brazil or another country to the US, is, how do you even find these internships? How do you land an internship like Facebook? What was the interview process? I'm going to kind of give you the floor now to just maybe give you your tips and tricks. Was there on-campus recruitment? How difficult were the interviews? Were you interviewing in other places? So if everyone who's listening, this is the time to kind of put things down and pay attention because he's about to spill the beans on how he landed an internship at Facebook at 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great question. So it kind of ties back to the story that I was telling you on how I switched from aerospace to computer science. When I switched, um, I didn't have any experience, work experience in the software industry, and I noticed that it would be a good idea to have that experience. And essentially, I was a freshman in the computer science department, right? So I had a lot of work to do if I wanted to get a good internship. So I decided to take this. I decided to take strategically take a little bit less classes on this one semester and be able to um, allocate more time to study on how to get how to land an internship essentially, and also to do some research as well. Um, so essentially, how do I prepare myself to get more experience, both in like research as well as industry, right? So I spent this entire semester just trying to understand how to do the interviews well, and what is this whole process of getting a software engineering internship, right? Um, and it was quite a tough semester, to be honest. In the beginning, I started reading a lot of resources online, and I bought this book. This is the classic book for software engineering interviews, which is called the Cracking the Coding Interview. Um, and I decided to like put in a lot of time to study that book, and read a lot of resources online, and then practice on my own for these interviews. And I can maybe later in a bit I can go over like the exact steps that I took to be able to crack coding interviews. um, but just to cover the entire story, I spent this entire semester, interviewing for a bunch of companies. So like maybe every month I would have yeah, 3 to 4 interviews. And yeah, I mean, I was just applying everywhere, and the idea there was to just get somewhere, and then like do that internship, and gain some experience, and just get to know how it is to work in the software industry, right? And so I applied to a bunch of places, spent the entire semester, studying, and interviewing, and literally I failed all of them, except for the last interview that I had that semester, which was with Facebook, and then later, like in the beginning of the next semester, I had one with Two Sigma. And for those two companies, I was able to get an offer in the end, but I ended up choosing to go to Facebook. Um, and that's how I moved to California for that summer, and then I had Christian live with me.
Facebook technically pays for, not technically, they do pay for your housing during internships, and Intel didn't. Um, and so when I heard that Naka was getting free rent, I said, "Who are you living with?" And he said, "Two random people that Facebook assigned." So I just made sure that I told him, "Nah, it's temporary. I'm staying here for like 5 days while they figure out my housing, and then we eventually became good friends with. So shout out to Cade, and who was the other guy? I forget. Oh my God,
Tanmay.
Tame, who also went to UPenn. So thank you guys for letting me stay at your place. So your younger brother Davi also interned at Facebook 3 years later, um, and but he did so as a freshman, which makes it that much more impressive. But that's because you coached him very well. I mean, apart from his ability, you were a good coach because you learned all these things yourself, and then you were able to pass it on. So, so this kind of begs the question: once you've done enough of these, does that mean that it's pretty much straightforward to crack, or because is it because you understood the process and now you're much better at problem solving? Is that kind of what you tried to drill into your brother?
Yeah, I mean, after that the whole semester of just studying how to approach these problems, these coding challenges, and then practicing a lot. I mean, I practice a ton of these coding problems. You kind of start getting the hang of it, and um, yeah, that's kind of what I passed on to my brother. I kind of like mentor him on what are the things that you should be, how to approach problems. It's not set in stone, let's say, but there are patterns that you kind of there's like general principles, let's say, that you can follow, and you gain somewhat of an intuition as you practice with more and more problems. So it is. I can't promise you that I'm gonna tell you these principles and then the next day you're gonna be able to solve these problems. That's not how it works. You have to be able to practice, right? Um, these principles are only useful when you actually practice and start gaining this intuition and understanding patterns of what questions to ask yourself when you're stuck. Um, like, yeah, what direction to follow. Um, what are the general things to look for? These are things that you gain with practice. So yeah, don't expect that there's a recipe there that once you read it, you're good to go.